Hi everyone, this is Brian Zabricki from New Horizons. Thanks so much for joining us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I am introducing Ryan Sharnock from CDH. He's a SharePoint specialist, and he's going to be talking to us about SharePoint adoption today. I'm going to come on for about 5 minutes to wrap things up towards the end of the webinar to talk about our Office 365 launch program that we have from New Horizons, which of course ties directly into user adoption issues that you might be experiencing with SharePoint. So with that, I'm going to make Ryan presenter here, and I'll kick things off.
All right, well, thank you, Brian. Can everybody see my screen okay? I'm going to say that as a yes. All right, well, welcome folks to the SharePoint end user adoption fails, and this is going to apply, this presentation is going to apply whether you're using SharePoint or if you're using Office 365. They're really comparable type of platforms, and a lot of my material comes from both of those scenarios and a lot of kind of use cases and clients we've worked with in the past. All right, so I'm with a firm called CDH, okay, and we've been in the industry here for about 26 years, so we've been around a long time, but we're a small, organized company of like really high-end kind of specialists. Think of us as like special teams kind of people, Navy SEALs type folks, really high-end. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. About 35 in staff, and we're located out of Grand Rapids and Detroit. Our user experience, our silos of expertise fall into 5 categories, from everything from infrastructure. We had infrastructure guys, collaboration, that's where I'm from. We have UX, UI people, app dev, and then project management. So, camera's on. So that's my buddy Matt. He's tailing with me too. So we have you can contact us through any of these social media channels. Okay, CDH. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and also on Facebook. So, but a little bit about me. I'm one of the consultants here, one of the SharePoint experts, and I've been working in the SharePoint space for the last 10 years from an infrastructure side of things, application development, and also a lot of the end user stuff. So when SharePoint got really big in 2007, I kind of jumped on that. But prior to that, I was a .NET developer, SQL DBA, and a network admin. And what does somebody with those qualifications get into? They get into SharePoint, because that's what the platform is. It's a database, it's an application, it's networking, it's all those things put together. So that's been it's been a great platform to be a part of, and I'm super honored by it. And last 4 years, I've been at Chrysler at FCA, and I was leading the 2 initiatives there. One was to do adoption for within the FCA organization, to lead their adoption of SharePoint inside that place through training and other kinds of events and organizations. And also, as part of a project manager and a developer, we developed solutions for different folks. So my expertise, a lot of my stories kind of come from those 2 areas, those 2 perspectives on the stuff. And so that's kind of a unique kind of proposition for today. And then also, I was, like Brian mentioned, I was a technical trainee at New Horizons for about 12 years, and I wrote their end-user curriculum. So for SharePoint 2007 and SharePoint 2010. All right, so that's pretty cool. Let's get started. So today's presentation, I'm going to share with you folks 8 common SharePoint or Office 365 adoption fails. These are opportunities where you could just drop the ball. Just totally mess up, fumble. It could be just disastrous. Some are bigger than others, some are more emphasized than others, but if you hit all 8 of these guys, you're going to be put yourself in a pretty close place of success and of driving adoption, getting a good ROI on this investment, this technological investment. All right, here we go. So number 1 is no clear strategy for your technological solutions. Here's what I mean for that. Okay, you got this pyramid here. You have an intranet. You have these ideas that you want to have social collaboration. You want to do team collaboration. You want people to have a profile, and you want people to store their user files. You're like, okay, great. What technology should we use for that? Is it going to be Google Docs? Is it going to be an HTML-based web page for intranet? What is the solution? What is the strategy for that? And so if you haven't clearly defined this is the strategy, then people are not going to know what to do with their files. They say, hey, Ryan, I got this file, I got this Excel document, and I don't know where to put it. Okay, and so by defining a strategy, people can have a very clear understanding of this is where this thing should go. That's a little story here is I was working with a client and they were getting involved with Office 365. They had an aging SharePoint portal and they engaged with Office 365. Now the first thing they started to use was this thing called OneDrive for Business. Now OneDrive is really good for the bottom tier for user files. But the funny thing is they started using OneDrive for all of their team collaboration. So not only did they have files that are just personal to them, okay, but they also had all their team files in there, and they were overly using it. They were sharing all these team files out of everyone's personal OneDrive because that's all they really knew. They weren't informed, weren't aware of that. And there was no strategy. Hey, you should be using these technologies for these types of solutions. And so, you know, it's the age-old ante that says if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. All right, and so a good solution for a strategy would look something like this, where you got Office 365, you're using a SharePoint platform or a web publishing portal for like your intranet, departmental type of information. You want to use Yammer for this. We're going to use either Teams, Groups, or just a SharePoint platform for team collaboration and OneDrive for business. This stuff should be clean. You should be able to articulate it in about 10 seconds. So if you're in an elevator with your CIO and they just mention you, or somebody in the C kind of level, they say, what's going on? You'll be able to bam, 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 and rattle that off. And it should be common knowledge about what is the strategy of your technological suite. So that's really fail number one, is no clear strategy for your technological solutions. Okay. Number two, ineffectual training. So training, you guys have a lot of different scale of options here. You can have an in-house trainer. Okay, that you actually, this is my professional trainer. I'm gonna hire them. They're gonna do all kinds of training, and SharePoint Office 365 are gonna be part of that. Okay, you can outsource it to New Horizons. They're fantastic folks, and they know what they're doing. Okay, all right. Maybe you're kind of in the middle there, or even less. You're like, I don't necessarily have a trainer that's full time, but I have people that are pretty smart. They're in the IT field, and I want to use them to do training. Or maybe you're going to hire a bunch of interns over the summer and they're going to do training. But regardless of what your implementation is, there should be a couple of principles you use when thinking about how your training should be. And a lot of this comes from my background with New Horizons and stuff. So if they're kind of giving them, you know, this is going to be, if you go with them as an option for training, you'll definitely get a lot of these options in here. Okay, so don't you guys just love Ben Stein? Anyone? Anyone? All right. So 3 keys to your training fail. Anyone? Here we go. So here's the things that you want to do. You want to make sure you got. All right, first thing we'll look at here is this. We're looking at this guy, picture of this guy playing cymbals. How easy is it to play the cymbals? It's pretty easy. You grab 2 pieces of metal, you bang them together. But the key for cymbals is knowing when and what is the appropriate time to actually ring those suckers. And so when you have training, you want to make sure that it's not just mechanics only. How do I make a library and create a new SharePoint library? Well, you hit the gear, you go down to Add App, you say Library, you type in the name. People have to know more about creation of libraries than just the 3 little clicks. Okay? They have to have an elevated mastery of that concept. And so in the world of education, we call that concept of elevating your mastery something called Bloom's Taxonomy. Bloom's Taxonomy says, hey, you can't just know the basic knowledge of it, but the more you know something, the more you can become more analytical with it or evaluative. Okay, so let me give you a couple of questions. All right, number 1, who knows the mechanics of how to make a library? Right? It is, yeah, I can do gear, add app, I can say add library. Okay, number 2, all right, let me give you a scenario. Okay, let's say you have 50 project-related documents, and you want to see if you want to use SharePoint to manage those. Would a document library be a good tool to use to manage those? You may say yes. You may say yes. I would say yeah. It's probably a good idea. Okay, and would you use a library or would you use a list in that case? If you had 50 project management-related documents, right? So that right there, that's analysis. That's higher mastery. Okay, let me give you one last one. Okay, let's say you had 3 types of documents: a project chart, a project plan, and a project cost sheet. Okay, and you had those 3 types of documents. Let's say you decided to store those in 3 separate libraries. Is that a good solution? Could you critique that solution and find the benefits and the drawbacks to that? Okay, see how those are all 3 examples of types of knowledge you could have increasing in mastery about one topic called the document library. And so your training should start at low level mechanics, but it should move to up the higher things where people are able to make decisions off the technology and says, well, that solution's a horrible solution. I wouldn't use that because, and they're able to give some kind of good defense for it or against it. And so your training, no matter whatever you use, okay, it needs to be more than mechanics. Okay. Number two, it can't be lecture only. It just can't be. All right. And the reason it can't be lecture only is because there's three major types of learning styles. Most people fall into one of these three major categories: visual, kinetic, or auditorial. If you're visual, that means you like graphics, you like pictures, you like things that are interactive. Okay. If you are you know, I always know I got a lot of visual learners if they're taking notes, because what they're doing is they're being interactive. Maybe they'll take notes for like to look at them, but the interaction of writing with pen and paper allows them to digest the stuff. They really like analogies and stories. Okay, that's visual. And the majority of the people out there, they're going to fall into that visual category. The kinesthetic ones are the ones that have to do it. You can tell them all about it. You can show them pictures, be like, well, let me get my hands on it, okay? And these are, if you think of like a mechanic, like sometimes they just need to figure it out. You don't want to tell them anything. They just want to figure it out, put their hands on it. They're able to put things together, shapes. And these folks, in order to learn, they need to do the work. They need exercises where they actually, okay, let's go build 5 libraries. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You know, and they go through the mechanics of actually doing it. That's how they're going to process and engulf information. And one of the things I always did as a trainer is if I'm going to do an activity, let's say it's building a document library, we do it 3 times. Okay, the first time you go through it is just to give people, oh, all right, this is how it's done. I get it. I got some assumptions. I go gear, add app, library. Got it. I got that assumption. The second time you go through it, okay, is you're confirming that assumption that I was like gear, add app, library. I got it. And then the third time we do the same. We do the exact same exercise. We'll do 3 different libraries, okay, with 3 different functions. But the third time, I give people an opportunity to do it on their own. And now they're at that point, if they should be able to do that activity on their own, and that's when they have that confidence to say, oh, I now know how to do this thing. Nobody has to give me instructions. I don't need notes. I've internalized it and I've done it. But what I found is it only works in 3s. If you did it a 4th time, people are bored. If you did it 2 times, they're lost. 3 is that magic number. You have to do it once to show, 2 to confirm, 3 on their own. Okay, that's not in my presentation anywhere, but just the freebie for you guys. But that's super cool for anybody. Well, it doesn't matter what your learning style, but if you do it for the kinetic learners, that's going to be massive, is the hands-on exercise. Lastly is the auditorial folks. They're the folks that don't need to make eye contact, take notes, okay? They can just sit in a class and they can just absorb even while they're on their phone and doing other kinds of things. So in college, I met my wife, and she wouldn't take any notes. She would just sit and kind of do a little, kind of pay attention and go straight A's. And I'm like, you make me so mad, right? Because I had to like write feverishly notes. I was interactive, and I had to ask questions. I needed analogies and stories. I needed to talk to people about things. And it was like I had to cycle 5 times. My brain has cycled 5 times for every one of hers. And the auditorial people, you know, are really, really smart. They don't need a lot of help. Usually they just tell me what it is, okay? And then I can basically figure the stuff out. They do like kind of auditorial things like a rhythm or a chant. I love SharePoint, yes I do. I love SharePoint, how about you? You know, so you can do all kinds of funny things to help them get that in. But another opportunity, this is the whole thing, is if you can't, number 2, your training cannot be lecture only. It can't. It has to be, otherwise you're not going to really be catering. You're only going to be catering if you do lecture only to the auditorial people. The visual and the kinetics, bam, they're not going to get it at all. All right. Lastly, 3, training. We don't do that here. All right. You should have training. All right. The key is you need to have some kind of training that's in there, and that if is it present or is it not present? It needs to be present. And so if I were to kind of lay out what would be a good kind of training regimen, is number 1, I would set up some kind of formalized classes where people can subscribe to these. Okay, the classes should be, as I mentioned before, increasing in mastery. They should be hitting multiple learning styles. Okay, and you should have different durations to match people's engagement. Right? If I'm going to have somebody who's going to be, like for example, I have this guy Randy, this buddy of mine. He was a really robust user. So we needed classes that really dealt with him, and he had a programming background, and he wanted to know how to build web parts. So we needed to have training that matched his engagement. But then I also had a lady, her name was Sandy, and her engagement was really low. Right? I just need to know how to add people to give them access. Okay, and so you need to have formalized training that matches the duration, matches their engagement. Another component is the self-service types. Okay, you should have some kind of library or knowledge base. Microsoft offers a great knowledge base, and there's a lot of online tools out there, from lynda.com to videos. I think New Horizon has an offering also where you can purchase video series and content from them, and you can have it in there in a catalog where people can subscribe to it. All right, but then you also need like formalized classes and self-service. But you also need a strategy to continue advancing knowledge. All right. Because your formalized classes, they go to a certain point. How do you continue in there? And so at Chrysler, at FCA, what we did is we set up a monthly user group. Okay, we would have all the admins or all the different sites. We'd have maybe about 20 to 40 people would show up, and we would just teach them something new, something advanced. We would tell them stories. Here's what this group did. They took SharePoint, they took this platform, and they solved a problem like this. Oh, here's a workflow. And we started introducing more advanced concepts, because people that are very engaged, like there's more. There's another hill to go. There's more to climb. There's another battle to keep going. As soon as people feel as though they've reached the top, they'll just kind of lose interest. Okay? The passion is always engaged by knowing that there's more to learn. Okay, and so you can do that by some kind of strategy to continue advancing people's knowledge. And so some kind of monthly event like that, or a user group that people can be involved in, is a great way of doing that. All right, so this is fail number 2. Fail number 2 is ineffectual training. All right, and this is somewhat I would see as a good recommendation for how to get that implemented into an organization. All right, number 3. This is similar to training, but a little bit different. Okay. Okay, number 3 is understanding. You got to understand that logical habits are hard to break. So, for example, cat logic. You buy this beautiful, awesome playground for them to use, and they just, I like the boxes. They sit on the box. Or here's dog logic. Biggest dog sits on the smallest bed. Small dog sits on the big bed. Right? These are ingrained habits, and so there's a lot of. We're coming out of a change of tools. For the last 20-some-odd years or so, since we've had PCs, the major tools that we've accomplished, solved business problems, is with the right hand of email and network shares, okay, and some kind of Office Suite product. Through those 3 tools, we have solved and we've accomplished a massive amount of business types of objectives. Okay, but in that, we've also established a lot of really good logical habits. Like, for example, if I have 5 types of files. If I'm in a network share, I should create 5 folders and put them in there, right? And excuse me. And if I need to email it to somebody, I take that document and I email it as an attachment. Okay, that is the habits, the logical habits that made sense for that platform. But now we're moving out of that platform into a web-based Office 365, get your data anywhere type of scenario, and then these habits are now becoming way obsolete. Okay, so I got a couple examples of a couple of habits, and I'll illustrate one of them. Okay, one of them is email attachments. Okay, one of the practices that you should ban is that in your organization you should ban the use of email attachments within your collaboration team. All right, because as soon as you do, as soon as you get an email with an attachment, that document is a point in time for which it came to you. And as soon as you get it, it's out of date. And the document may be changing. It's very organic. It's very flexible. It's a dynamic file. It's changing. Let's say it's a sales report. It's growing as sales numbers are changing. Boom, boom, boom. The data is bubbling through it. And as soon as it gets emailed to you, you've lost track of it. And then if your buddies, if you're the manager, you might get emailed another one the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Maybe you get an email every day or every series of days. But the problem comes in where you say, well, what's the latest version of this? And now you have an inbox that's full of emails with attachments, and you have to spend probably on average 10 to 15 minutes finding just the latest version of that document that was emailed with an attachment. That's just crazy. I did a calculation. If that happens to you, if you got to look for a version of a document, if you got to do that like twice a month, okay, you're going to waste a half a day a year. Half a day a year just answering the question, what's the latest version of a document? Okay, and that's just, and if you take that for per person across the organization, we're just killing time. We're just wasting time and energy because we're using an old habit with a new set of technologies. And so OneDrive for Business is a great tool, and SharePoint is a great platform, and they offer some great features called send a link. Okay, instead of sending the email with a file embedded as an attachment, you send a hyperlink to the document. And think of it like a street address to a house. Okay, once you give somebody the address, even if the house changes, even if you paint the outside, redo the kitchen, or you rake the leaves in the yard, you don't rake the leaves in the yard, that address will always take you to the exact same place, no matter the condition of that dynamic location. And that's the way a hyperlink is going to work too. In that same way is that if I get an email, I need one, and that link will always take me to the latest version, because OneDrive and SharePoint, they have this auto versioning feature built into it. And what that does is, as people make changes, it always shows you the latest version up top, and you can go back in history and look at it. That right there, folks, is a huge, huge habit change. Huge habit change. And I can't tell you how hard it is for people, because it makes sense to them to then change what makes sense to them. You have this email. A couple of the ones that off the top of my head are Office templates are most likely stored in a folder called templates. Okay, and SharePoint and Office 365, you can have the templates embedded right where people need to use them, so that they waste time finding templates. Okay, using folders for organization. There's opportunities to really get away from folders. I'll illustrate that in a second. And also long file naming conventions can go away too. You can use much shorter names. So let me talk about folders and naming conventions real quick. Okay, actually I'll focus on folders. All right, so if I look at this picture, can you find the wine glasses? Pretty quickly, pretty easy. It's right here. You found it. Pretty easy, okay? So let me go to the next slide. Can you find the wine glasses now? No. We just put the doors on a kitchen, and it comes to find, you can't find them. The same is with folders. As soon as you put content inside of a folder, it hides what's in it. And think about how much time is wasted in looking through folder after folder after folder. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. Oh, it's misfiled. You go back up, go through another folder directory system. It's not there. You have to go back up, back and forth, back and forth. And folders, not only they're good for classifying, they also hide the contents that's there. And so SharePoint offers a whole bunch of new opportunities. Instead of putting content in folders, you can have the information in columns, in data, where people can come to a page and they can see all of the data, and they can sort, they can filter, and it's if you took off all the cabinet doors in your kitchen, people can quickly discover your content much faster. So imagine I had a group of folks, they had all of the engineering standards for this group in engineering at FCA. It's their job to make sure that engineers use these standards. So for example, if you're going to bond metal to plastic, you need to use this kind of glue, all right, to have this kind of heat tolerance. This is the standards that they've had out of recalls in all of the years that they've been building manufacturing vehicles. So for them, it's kind of like they're selling this information. It's really important that they get this out. And so they start off by having everything in folders, and they found that no one used the site. I said, well, why don't you guys just take it out of the folders, okay, and classify it? Well, is this for metal or is this for plastic? Is this for bonding or is it for casting? Is it for, and they have a column class kind of defining, giving attributes, kind of like the details view in Windows Explorer, and giving out all these details or attributes about the document. And as a user comes to the site, they just see this big grid of data. They can sort, they can filter, they can, and now it's much more flexible. People found content 10 times better, and their site increased in usability on it. And so that's just another kind of habit, is getting rid of, there's a lot, it makes sense. Logically, folders make sense, sure, if you're using only network shares, email, and Office files. But now we have some other types of opportunities, and so you might want to change some of the habits. So that's just one example here, guys, is use metadata instead of folders, an example of habits. And there's a great commercial that's out there of this guy. This daughter gives her dad an iPad, and you can see he uses it for chopping, like a cutting board. Okay, we don't want to use that. We want to be able to use the technology for what it is. So that's the fail number 3, is understanding that not only is training for mechanics, but there's also training for habit change. Awesome. Let's move on. So fail number 4, the search doesn't find anything. Okay. So quick little question: can you find the green chairs? Maybe, maybe not, right? So they're right over here. Okay, so how about now? Can you find the baseball bats? In the before, not so much, but over here, okay, if it's organized, you can find it. Pretty easy. And so the idea is search is a really, really powerful component of Office 365 and of SharePoint, okay? And the solution for your search is you should have someone really begin to administrate it. And here's what I mean by that, okay? To set up search initially, it takes all of about an hour. I'm just going to say that from an administrative standpoint, I could set up and install and get SharePoint Search and running just from a basic, let's just get it going, all right? Administration standpoint, I could do it in an hour. But guess what? That'll just give you an okay experience. You should have somebody that's focused and thinking about search, gives you a log of what keywords are being used, what are the terms people are finding, what are they searching for, and so then you can have the search engine using a little bit of like artificial intelligence to say, hey, well, these are the keywords. Let's make sure that they're getting to the right content. Are they getting to where they need to go? And so a search administrator, they're given all of that information to start tying those couple of things together. And so we offer a service for called Concept Search. It's a product that we install into an organization that basically does that. We create rules that says, hey, if you search for this, and there's a dynamicness of it searches further. So for example, if you search for Coke, it'll search for like synonyms in other places, Coke, pop, soda, other keywords are used based off of mappings and pulls up and give people a really great customized search experience. It's amazing. Google revolutionized how we use the internet. And so through a good search administration, you can revolutionize how people use the information within your content. And so Concept Search is a good one, even some just good administration. The other part of that is good organization of your content. Okay, so for example, my son, he's got a phone, okay, and he asked me, hey Dad, what's the email of this guy? Okay, he goes, I sent you this email. Can you pull this information out of the email? I sent you my username and password for this site you need to log into. I was like, okay. So I started scrolling through my emails looking for my son's name in the subject. I was kind of doing a menu. I was searching, kind of glancing through the thing. He goes, why are you doing that? Why don't you just go to the search and search through your emails, type my name in, and find it? And dawned on me, it's like, that's not my natural thinking. My natural thinking is I like things categorized and organized, like a menu, like entrees, salads, desserts, and I like to find the category and kind of scan through and find it from there. But his mind is a little bit different. He's like, no, I always like a text-based search. So your search solution should fall really into these two categories. Yes, greatest free text search kind of scenario, awesome. But you also, if someone comes to your site, have your content well organized, because you're going to have about 50% of your population that will never use the free text search engine. They're just going to see how you organize things, okay? And they're going to go to town. They're going to want to look through it that way. They'll never use like a Google type experience. All right. So as a SharePoint search, as fail number 3, I think this is 4. Okay. You need to have, this is 4, is you need to have a great search engine experience for folks. Great. Let's keep moving on. All right. So in your opinion, I got a question for you. And okay, SharePoint, would you consider it a police state, highly governed, really dictating curfews and what's going on? Is it an anarchy, people just do whatever they want? Or is it a hybrid approach? Hybrid approach. Okay, and so your answer to that really gets us into a couple of different things. All right, so for example, we have this pyramid, all right, okay, and where does governance, that's our next failure point here, is governance, okay? And so governance is where you guys set up rules, you set up policies and best practices for how these types of content should be used and what they should be used for. All right. So governance, your oversight, and your control is always going to be higher. Okay, with the more people that access the content. Okay, it requires more governance and control. And if the fewer people that access the content, the less control that you need in there. So there's this inverse kind of relationship between governance and the actual control and the content that's there. And so a good example of governance is you have to decide, like, if you're going to have a departmental champion, okay? And so a departmental champion would be somebody in your department that's the SharePoint or Office 365 person, right? And they're in charge of something. And so part of governance is going to define roles and responsibilities. And so a good example of that would be defining the role for a departmental champion. And so here's kind of the decision matrix I go through with organizations. So, well, your departmental champion, they can be one of three types of people. They can be just a curator of content. That means the only thing they do is they make sure that the content that's there is accurate, up to date, there's only one copy, it's authoritative, and it's according to best practices, that it's tagged appropriately, and it has a retention policy on that where it gets reviewed on a timely basis. So you don't have to know much about Office 365 or SharePoint to be a content curator. You go, yeah, that's the right document, that's the right new employee form, this is it, I can tell, yeah, that's it, right? But then the next middle tier guy is a departmental champion, is somebody that has a content curator, but then they also take care of the security administration. They allow certain access to this, okay, to the content that's there, the right people in and the wrong people out. But then the third iteration here is a department champion that is a content curator, security admin, but then they also develop and they configure the site. They create new lists and libraries. They change web parts around. They're not necessarily writing code. Maybe they are. And then putting some HTML or JavaScript on a page, but they're really beginning to change the way the SharePoint site experience is looking. Okay? And so part of governance is deciding who is this person? Are you going to decide that every department has a department champion and it's got to be green? Well, if it's green, then they have to have training to get there. Okay? And let's say that person leaves, who takes over for it? Well, is it the IT department or is it a sister department? Okay? And so there's all these questions that need to be answered about governance. And they have to be, and I'm going to be really particular about it, your governance has to be realistic. It has to be realistic. Okay? I don't think it's very realistic. In most organizations, they really like the green idea. They go, oh, that's going to be awesome. Especially the IT guys, like, yeah, push it out, delegate it out to those guys. They should own the content. They should be curating the content. They should be securing it. And they should be configuring their own SharePoint site because that's what they do. That's what the SharePoint platform's for, enabling the users to do their own work. But that's not realistic, okay? For example, I had a department that I worked with, and the department champion there for SharePoint was a chemical engineer. It's a chemical engineer. Had about 6 years of secondary and college education in chemical engineering. And you know how they spent most of their day, 75% of the day? Securing it. Building lists, libraries, building SharePoint content. Now, if you don't mind paying the salary of a chemical engineer to do that kind of work, dude, you're awesome. Go for it, okay? However, it just wasn't realistic for that organization. And so what we did was, well, how about we change that around? Let's make you like just let's downplay it to the orange. You'll just be a content curator, and let's either hire an intern, let's get somebody to do this other type of work, or let's put it into the IT department, and we're going to internalize it. And so part of governance is not only coming up with policies and procedures, but also coming up with stuff that's realistic that says, well, in your department, if you have an orange, that means it goes to IT, and you have to fund. This is maybe a funding thing that goes on with having IT people to have, having a help desk that is qualified to do the green and the yellow. And so that's really fail number 5, is having unrealistic governance. Okay? Yeah, you can make decisions. This is the knob. This is the lever. We're going to turn this on. We're going to turn this off. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. But if you're giving people roles and responsibilities that they incapable of doing, that's going to be destined to fail. Destined to fail. So I found the greatest success with a lot of these governance. If you do realistic operations, you have a great opportunity for success. All right, great. I got 3 more to go. Here we go. So next little quiz. Everybody know who this is? I don't have a chat window available to me, but this right here, folks, is George McClellan. He is considered America's worst general in history. Okay, in the Civil War, he was given the command of the Union Army by President Lincoln, and the Southern rebels were kind of in disarray. General Lee was kind of moving his troops around, and he was given an enormous army, 3 times the size of Lee's, and if he moved quickly, he could move out of Washington with this army and capture Lee in the city. I think it was Richmond, near Virginia. But he decided, I'm going to be cautious. I don't want to get surprised. And he really took his time. He took his time so long that he gave Lee this hill area, okay, and where they dug in on this open hill. And eventually, by the time McClellan got there, the guys had built an entire siege works there, and McClellan marched his army up there to their death. All right. So the idea behind this, guys, the story is that George McClellan, worst general in history, is that number 6 is that if you have a sponsor, they got to sponsor by example. They need to sponsor these ideas, okay, to move quickly, to act decisively, to let's embrace change, let's use collaborative tools. They have to sponsor that not by just name only, but they have to do it as an example. Okay, they have to be out there. If let's say your sponsor is the HR department or marketing, and then the executive there, it says, actually puts time and energy into, we want to be the poster child for using these types of tools. This right here, folks, this failure point is a very challenging item, and it takes a lot of training, education to get that sponsor on board. Okay, and finding kind of somebody that you can really link arms with and really go in and says, hey, we want to succeed at this, but I really need somebody to be my advocate and be my voice at an upper management area of this organization. Would you mind, could we use your department in your area as a case study? And so that's where it really becomes, you can always want to sell them a good, like, here's the outcome. You look good. This is going to be really good. You're going to increase your productivity. People are going to stop wasting time. It's going to be awesome. People will be high-fiving every day and singing while they come to work. Well, that's maybe too far, but there's definitely benefits to it. And so being a good leader or visionary can help them, and gather them into your fold into this will make a big change and give you a good opportunity to not fail on your adoption. So let's fail number 6. Sponsor by name only. They don't do it. There's no activities behind it. All right, great. Let's keep moving on. Number 7. Meet your new personal trainer. Yay! No. Okay. Fail number 7 is there's no expertise within your IT team. Okay. And what I'm talking about is with the collaborative platform that you're installing, whether it's SharePoint or Office 365, if you have kind of a bare bones IT team, okay, then you're going to most likely have somebody that can run some network stuff. You got a help desk. You might have an application developer or a DBA, and you're maybe a small size organization, or maybe you're pretty big. But it's going to be super important that you acquire some major expertise. So, for example, I wouldn't want Pee Wee Herman to be my personal trainer, right? He doesn't look like he's got a lot of expertise. Doesn't have a lot of experience in building muscle, losing weight, and accomplishing my goals. Okay, but these dudes. Yeah, I want those guys to be my personal trainers, okay? Yeah, they've been there and back many times, right? They've seen a lot. They have a lot of hardened experience in the world of fitness. And so inside of your IT organization, you really need folks like this. And I kind of think of them, this is the Navy SEALs. You need a Navy SEAL group within your IT organization that focuses on your collaborative platform. Okay, so for example, at Chrysler, we had me and about 2-3 other guys that we were just really good at the SharePoint platform, and we had an offshore development team of about 7 people. So me and these 3 guys, we would go out there, we would meet with different organizations within Chrysler. It's a huge organization. Think of it just like it was like 12 different separate companies. We would gather requirements, find needs, pitch them and design a solution, and then we would manage it to the offshore development guys, and they would build the stuff, and we would turn around amazingly complex solutions, and we gave ourselves a time limit in 3 months or less. In 3 months or less. And then, because if we took longer, we wouldn't be that serviceable people, too. Okay. And so we always kept a queue of projects, and we built amazing things. And we kind of had this swagger of like, it doesn't matter what you do, we could build it. Okay. And we weren't using a lot of .NET code. We were using all client-side code, workflows, SharePoint Designer, basic web parts. We were using what I call very manageable type of operations that are there. It doesn't have to be incredibly complex. And so you need to have expertise either embedded in your team, or you either hire it out. We're a good partner that would Microsoft partner for that kind of thing. You need it, or have somebody you trust that can help you with that stuff. They either do the infrastructure, they get you knowledge of best practices, and start developing solutions. Okay, and so that's what we found. We found that, like, I went in this one organization and I built a real simple SharePoint site for lessons learned. Okay, when they get done building a vehicle, they would then take the application, and they would take and say, here's what we did, here's our problems, here's what we've learned, here's how we fix this. And now we're going to change all of our documentation so we don't have that repeat problem again. We made this little simple lessons learned database with a bunch of workflows and approvals. Guess what? As soon as we got that out there, people understood exactly what that was. Like, oh, that is really cool. I want one of those. And so people started lining up to have their own version of a lessons learned database. And so we just then templatized it, and bloom, ka-bloom, ka-bloom, ka-bloom. And so when you have an experienced IT team, they can come in, they can solve problems very fast, very quickly, slow amount of cycles, and then it creates momentum to then and excitement and buzz. And this kind of leads me to my last kind of fail point. Okay, I was watching this movie the other day with my son, Forrest Gump. You guys familiar with this one? It's great. And Forrest Gump, if you think about his story, he's a kid, can't run, he runs, he has a girl he loves, he goes to college, goes to Vietnam, friend's a best friend, and starts a shrimp business, saves people, it runs forever. There's bullet points, but the whole movie, it's really him telling stories. He sits on this park bench, he tells these stories of all of these really cool things. And I tell you what, stories are the best way to communicate success. And your failure point is, if you communicate your project in bullet points and milestones, you're missing out. You have an opportunity to fail. And you can kind of, not necessarily fail, but you can make it 10 times better if you just choose to tell 30-second stories, 10-second stories, 15. Keep them short, keep them sweet, keep them punchable, keep them learnable, okay? And that's the best way to communicate how this stuff can work. And so it was a great item there. The big takeaway from Forrest Gump is that dude just sat on a park bench from the movie, told stories, and it's him just narrating his life. So that's the way you should be narrating to other people in the organization, and saying, hey, look, we built this intranet for you. We built this search engine. Look, we could do this. We can build this search experience for you also. Look, we took this mess of documents and we organized it into nice metadata. Look, people can come, they can shop for information, super easy. And if they search for it by the same keyword, it pops up and they can find it. It's nice. It's super nice. And that's fail point number 8. And so the question is now, I'm gonna close this down, is where do you guys go from here? Okay? All right, and Brian's going to talk about some of the core training stuff. But if you're looking to engage like a technological partner, we offer all kinds of services. And the best way for me to describe them is small, medium, and large. Small, we're there for a couple of days to help you come up with like maybe just a roadmap. Okay? Medium, we do all kinds of work with you for a long time, whether it's we do infrastructure, build an app, you name it. But it falls into that spectrum of 8 usual fail points. And then large, we're a full-service organization that can come and staff aug. We can do whatever you want us to do. But the key is we're really a great group of folks that can help you. And so in summary, I showed you guys 8 failure points. Number 1, you need to have some clear training or clear strategies to these solutions that you're implementing. I really want SharePoint to do, and if you can't say it in 10 seconds or less, you probably don't have it. Okay. Number 2, you need some really good what I call training, from formal to self-discovery, and also continuing their education. 3, you got to really manage people's logical habits, okay? And some of those ones we looked at folders, and then also like emailing attachments. 4, your search engine should be really a key piece or priority that allows people to find their content. If they can't find it, and think about it, you really only have a couple of seconds to give people trust of your search engine. You need those first couple experiences to be amazing and awesome. They find the content they want. Okay, unrealistic governance. Okay, it's great. Everybody's going to manage their own content. Go for it, but not He has to be realistic that it's the right people doing the right stuff, okay, and they agree to it. Sponsor by name only, no expertise in your IT team, and lastly, stories aren't told. You need to tell the stories, okay? And that was part of our user group that we did at Chrysler, is we would tell stories as different. We would meet people. I would interview them. I would actually interview them. We would do a live interview show and says, well, tell me about your site. Oh, wow, that's really cool. Take us on a tour. What'd you do with it? Oh, that's amazing. Look at the workflow you built there. That's cool. I never thought of that. You know, and we just made it fun. We made it fun, and we had a party every year for the admins and the champions, because they are the folks really promoting this. And if you keep those people engaged, you're going to go a long way and tell those stories. So if you want to connect with me, I'm Ryan C. at cdh.com. I'm on Twitter at RyanCharnock9, and I'm with CDH. And so I'd like to thank you guys for coming to this webinar. I hope you found it really helpful. And guess what? User adoption does not have to fail, but you do have to be strategic. You do have to be intentional about it. Okay, and I think a lot of organizations, they found that we can put SharePoint out there, okay, and if they give it a nice new shiny tool, doesn't mean necessarily people will use it. You need to be intentional about getting people to that point. So at this point, I'd like to turn over to Brian, and thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Awesome presentation. Everyone, we're going to take about 5 minutes here, and I'm going to share a few pieces with you. And hopefully you're seeing my screen right now. So again, great presentation, and as Ryan mentioned, user adoption is obviously paramount. When speaking with Microsoft, you know, New Horizons is a gold learning partner with Microsoft. We do more Microsoft training than anyone else worldwide, and we've developed an Office 365 launch program to push that end user adoption once you get Office 365 pushed out into your organization. Obviously, a big thing on Microsoft's mind is utilization of the product. They want to make sure that the product is consumed the right way. So what we've done is we've developed a 90-day launch program for any organization that is going through an Office 365 migration. And that's a little bit about what I wanted to very quickly show you, just in case you have a migration of your own coming up. So what is our launch program, and what is it made up of? It's a multifaceted slate of end-user training designed to increase adoption and activation of 365. The program equips new users with the tools to make a successful transition. It's made up of 3 major components that we use here at New Horizons, which is our on-demand video platform for NH Go Now, quick reference cards, and instructor-led training with a program that we call Power Hour. Additional features that you get are weekly emails, monthly webinars, and access to the largest guaranteed to run schedule in the industry. So let me talk just for a moment about those major components that we made mention of. So here we have on-demand video with NH Go Now. That's the most up-to-date, engaging video learning library available today, with a robust collection of 365 related videos available whenever you are. So as part of the program, your end users are going to be able to get instant access to our Office 365 library. So I would encourage you all to check out NH Go Now at nhgonow.com to see more example videos of that platform. The other piece they're going to get are quick reference cards, which have the most up-to-date content in the industry of anyone out there producing quick reference cards. I think you'll find ours are pretty much better than anyone else. Those are delivered digitally. And then finally, we have instructor-led training, which is a huge differentiator for us because it allows our customers to have multiple touch points with experts, expert instructors that we have currently on staff. So those are delivered live. So what does the 90-day launch program actually look like? So let's take a look at a little bit about how this looks and exactly what you get as part of the program. So you can see that this thing rotates in 3 phases here, which is pre-launch awareness, launch, and then post-launch and ongoing adoption. So this is, again, a 90-day program taking your entire end-user community from start to finish and providing them the information that they need so that when Office 365 is rolled out and in the weeks ahead, they're going to be incredibly well adapted to the new environment if you're coming off of a standalone installation of Office that they may have installed on their local computers. So we start out with a tailored launch program committed to by our success manager, and every organization has a success manager assigned to kind of shepherd them through the entire process to make sure that you're completely on track the entire time. Then you go through a project plan and agreement kickoff, a kickoff email and excitement video so that your internal users are going to be very well informed on the changes that are forthcoming and to get everybody a little bit excited about Office 365 getting dropped onto their desktops. Then we provide training for IT and the help desk, knowing that there's going to be some questions, and we provide training to IT to make sure that their migration goes smoothly. We then follow that up with Office 365 instructor-led training or a power hour session. We distribute our first QRC card at that point to your internal users so they get a leg up on the new interface. We go through a review of the initial training with the success manager to make sure that everything, again, is perfectly on track. And then during the launch phase of the process, we go through Outlook Online instructor-led training. Because at New Horizons, we kind of know the areas that the end user struggles with the most, and certainly one of the most different areas of Office 365 is that difference between Outlook, from the locally installed version to the 365 hosted version. So we include an instructor-led training session that covers that. And then we kick off our weekly productivity emails with links to productivity tips on our blog, so you're going to be distributed one there. Then we have the Office 365 Webinar Fundamentals that covers the fundamental information that the new users should know. Then we go through a review of the post-launch training plan, and for post-launch and ongoing adoption, we essentially repeat the NHGo Now, the instructor-led training, more distributed quick reference cards for those end users, an additional webinar, more emails, and then ongoing Office 365 video content. So if you were to visit our launch program page, which, by the way, I've had one more slide to show you. You want to go to nhls.com/O365launch, and on that page, you'll be able to get a lot more information on our launch program, more details about the three major fundamental areas that we include, which again are on-demand video with NHGo Now, quick reference cards, our Power Hour series with descriptions of each of those if you hover over those tiles, and then the New Horizons difference, where we kind of discuss the 6 major pieces, and the assessments and the reporting capability you have with our launch program are absolutely phenomenal. So you'll be able to see which of your end users has gone through and watched any of the videos from NHGo Now or participated in those, plus assessments each step of the way when moving from one area of the video to another. A review of that launch program is listed here as well, along with a frequently asked question sheet so you can get more information on the cost and availability of our launch program, and then a quick link right here if you have any follow-up questions. Or any information at all you need from us on the launch program, you of course know where to find it. So that's all I wanted to share with you. This is a program that we have a duplicate program also for Windows 10 migration. I know that SharePoint and Office 365 is on the mind of everyone attending this webinar. We again thank you very much, and if there's no additional questions or comments, we'll wrap things up. I'll leave the session open for just a few more minutes in case you do have a follow-up question. With that, I'll again say thank you and have a great day.